Good morning. Welcome to the Logistics Business virtual show. I hope you're enjoying looking at our range of exhibitors and other content. I'm here as the editor of the magazine, Paul Hamblin, running a series of panels with experts from around the industry. This is our first panel, and it's on the theme of Logistics 2030. It's a broad theme. We're really looking at the state of the industry, the challenges and the opportunities brought by new technology, and just having a look at what the next decade might bring us. And to that end, I'm joined by an expert panel from around the world, and I'm going to ask them to give you a short introduction of each other, if they wouldn't mind. So shall we start with you, Gaurav? You begin.
Sure. Hi, everybody. Pleasure to be here. My name is Gaurav Bhagi. I work for a company called InnoWisdom. We are AI and machine learning specialist consultancy headquartered in the UK. Essentially, we help our clients market differentiate by analyzing data on their customers, their suppliers, machines, vehicles, and really embedding these insights into their business operations. So that's about me and InnoWisdom.
Thank you. Jason?
Morning. Yeah, I'm a corporate finance advisory partner at BDO, who are an international firm of accountants and business advisors. I specialize in working with business owners and corporates involved in raising strategy, raising finance, realizing value ultimately for the business, M&A advisory work, and work on transactions with lots of investors, both private equity and trade investors.
Thank you, Jason. And Michel?
Yeah, delighted to be here. So great to see you all. My name is Michel Stakelenberg. I'm the Director of Strategic Accounts EMEA at Product 44, one of the leading transportation visibility partners, vendors. I'm very passionate about supply chain optimization, digitization, and it also ties back to me being the president of the CSCMP Benelux Roundtable, one of the roundtables of the Council of Supply Chain Management Professionals. And happy to be here again. Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. And I should say that Michel has joined us from the delights of the Netherlands Antilles, so we're extra grateful to him for that. Let's steam in then. I can't remember if I said earlier, yes, I did, about the text, didn't I, about questions, so I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure I said that. Let's move into the main content of the meeting. The state of the industry from a kind of a macro and overview. Jason, could I ask you to give us a view on the state of logistics? Is it boom, is it bust, or is it somewhere in the middle?
Yeah, I think it's possibly somewhere in the middle. I think that my sense is, despite a number of clear challenges in and around the sector, and the high profile stories of driver shortages and accessing warehouse staff, and the global supply chain challenges we've had over the last year or so, actually the sense is that there's quite a lot of optimism out there in the marketplace in terms of opportunities for investment and opportunities for growth, be that through investment around capacity, investment around automation, new systems, processes. Certainly seeing a lot of M&A at work in terms of transactional activity as people look to consolidate and grow into new markets and new market opportunities. There's a lot of disruption going on in the marketplace that we're seeing, and that's creating opportunities for businesses that they can take advantage of. We're seeing people take issues like the challenges that Brexit have thrown at us and apply expertise and skills such that provides a broader, more value-added service proposition to people's customers. I think on the whole, the sense is that there's a real sort of view that growth, there are growth opportunities, and we are seeing cost increases in the marketplace that are going to come through. But again, I guess to some extent, the visibility over the challenges the industry faces means that I'm genuinely seeing a sort of sense that people can look to revalue the supply chain in that discussion and get better value, in the marketplace.
Right. And you are you sensing that this attitude applies to businesses with lots of hardware, such as forklift companies and that kind of thing, and big sort of storage and automation, or are we talking about software and digital
Yeah, it's a big push towards software and digital. A lot of investment interest, I guess, comes through the more the asset light models of the marketplace, the 3PL, 4PL models, where certainly in terms of investment interest, there's an opportunity and a view that there is a more scalable model for growth in the future. The challenge with a more asset-based model is that it's the cost of the investment requirement, the challenges of the cycle of investment that comes with that in terms of investment and return. However, what we are seeing is that for those businesses that do operate big asset bases, that the consolidation through scale and the opportunities through scale of resource is proving to be of interest in the market.
And is this being driven primarily by changes in end user habits? We know a lot about the growth of e-commerce, for example. Is that what's driving this, the logistics as an attractive proposition?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, if you look where the investment money is going, it's into fulfillment services. There's a lot of technology going into the whole platforms around last mile delivery and fulfillment services. Fulfillment operators are looking at how they can broaden that service offering to provide more value added proposition. So actually, bringing in services where they're actually putting product together, they're adding gifts, etc. They're making it a broader service, and creating more value in the supply chain process that they're delivering in that. Clearly, the automation side of things is something where, I think a lot of the automation we're seeing, or certainly what I'm seeing at the moment, is where there is a scale of operation and a standardization of process in some elements of the way the end user, the end consumer markets have changed. They're looking for more individual type packaging and products, etc., which don't necessarily always lend themselves to that automation process. Sure.
And interesting the point you made about fulfillment process. Are we going to see some tasty competition and a fight for, for greater share in that might lead to more consolidation among fulfillment operators?
Yes, I think so. I mean, there's already a battle for warehouse space going on in capacity in the marketplace. And you're seeing that in deals. Wincanton have just bought a business, Signia. That's a great example of them sort of expanding into expanding their fulfillment services. You're seeing the pressures that come from Amazon putting more and more into the marketplace, and they're driving out, they're taking out drivers, they're taking out capacity in there and making it extremely more competitive for the other players in the marketplace.
As I've got you on the panel, I've got to ask you, I mean, it may not be something that you're front connected with, but where do you think this warehouse property, fight is going to end up? Because, we've got the drive to urban logistics, the drive to get urban space for warehouses. How far can it go, this battle?
Yes, good question, really, and I guess one that is difficult for to find the right answer. Yeah, there's a restriction on the capacity that will ultimately be available. I think it will. It has to have a limit. I think that there'll be an element of automation that has to come in to help support that and efficiency gains. But how long can it go on for? We're building capacity as fast as possible in the marketplace at the moment. You're seeing lots of investments around properties and new build sites and scale of sites. But I think it's only got, how many, the answer is I probably don't know how many years that's got left in it before we start to realize that we've got to manage in the space we have.
Yeah, sure. Okay, thank you very much for that. Michel, in particular, I'd love to get your feedback on that, on what Jason's just said.
Yeah, really like what Jason just mentioned, and specifically the piece on automation, of course. And to take it one step back, and we're talking about the future, how will the future look like? But I think if we go back years, I think as you mentioned, Amazon, one of our clients actually, I think they were kind of the pioneers or the triggers in the industry for visibility. They basically set the standard that every client should know exactly at every moment of the day, what is the status of my shipment, when can I expect my shipment to arrive at my destination, at my door, at my warehouse. And what you now see due to the current disruptions going on, the Suez crisis, but also Corona, of course, the whole market has transformed. People are more and more ordering things online, so the amount of shipments going on has significantly increased. So also the demand for automation, for visibility has significantly grown. So yeah, again, Amazon started this journey, I think, but the disruptions going on after the last year has accelerated that, and we really see that back in our business. So many of our clients, they saw visibility maybe as something they needed to look into at some point, and now it's very obvious for all of these players how important it is to mitigate risk and to ensure you have everything in place and have access to high fidelity data to create a more sustainable supply chain, to increase sustainability, efficiency, reduce costs. So yeah, it's really a trigger. I really recognize that, and more and more companies are heavily looking into how do I, create a more sustainable supply chain. So yeah, I fully recognize that. Yeah.
Gaurav, have you got a view on this? We'll talk in more detail, as I say, about machine learning, what you do, but just in reaction to Jason's point.
Yeah, I think what I found interesting was, Jason talked about, capacity constraints or buildup of capacity, and investors looking at asset-light businesses. We're kind of seeing, I would say, from a machine learning lens, what we're seeing is we're looking at things like preventive maintenance. People trying to sweat their assets right across the useful life. So I think there's some useful linkages there, and it's literally that trade-off between how do you keep the asset of a vehicle in the field earning revenues. Think of a ship, for instance, right? Do you want to keep the ship at sea earning revenue, transporting cargo from point A to point B, or do you want to bring it in for servicing, right? At which point you take it out of its revenue generating capacity, and you're trying to reducing operating costs. So I think that balancing act kind of plays into what Jason's saying, and even what Michel was saying really resonates with the stuff we're seeing on the machine learning side, right? There's a lot of automation, customers asking, where's my package, where's my shipment, that real-time visibility into the supply chain. And we've got a lot of use cases when we're modeling for ETA, the estimated time of arrival. So when we think about the customer or the demand function today, fundamentally has changed, right? You have, with the explosive growth of e-commerce, like you mentioned a few minutes ago, you have customers who are, different profile of customers. They're more tech savvy. They're not as patient. They might buy something on Amazon, and they want to know, where's my product? When am I going to receive it, right? That's all they're thinking. And if you can't provide real-time visibility into that shipment status, that's going to adversely impact the customer experience. So we see a lot of companies, logistics operators, investing in their supply chain capabilities, reinventing themselves, turning to cloud computing and technology, AI, machine learning to solve for some of these problems.
Sure. Let's look broadly at the challenges facing. I think it's a positive picture you painted there, Jason. What are the challenges facing the industry in your view? Starting with yourself, Jason.
Well, I mean, the biggest immediate challenge is a people issue. It's the skills, it's the drivers. We're all seeing it on the news, but it's not a new issue. We've produced a survey across the sector for a number of years, and the shortage of drivers has been top of the list for a number of years, and it's not, whilst we have accelerated some of those issues with Brexit and the access to overseas drivers and some of the pandemic elements that hit us during the year, actually there's a long-term issue there of investing and attracting people into the industry, and that will continue. And much as I would like to think driverless 44-ton trucks might be something of the future, it feels a long way off in terms of the ability to deliver that. So bringing people into the industry, and I think that goes across all aspects of creating a workplace that is attractive to the next generation of people, the young people coming through now. What would attract them into the logistics industry? They expect a quality of life and workplace environment that has to be supported by the industry.
Sure. Let me just come in. I just want to get Michel on that point about driver shortages. I think there's a view in the UK that it's a UK only problem. Would you agree with that, or do you think that Europe has a similar issue with driver shortages?
Yeah, I think it's actually a global trend we're seeing, and I think the shortage will only increase in the next coming years. So I don't see this as any local issue. That's also why many companies are, investing in autonomous trucks, for example, to see, how in future will we be able to cover that pain. But I also want to highlight another, I think, big challenge and risk we see in the industry, which is just a shortage in container capacity, for example. So yeah, driver shortage is one, the human factor. But what about capacity, right? And that's also something which we are hearing in the market more and more often.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, we'll maybe come back to that in a when we talk a bit more about your business in a while. In terms of broader challenges, Jason, you talked about the short term. Well, it's not, I say short term, it's a very much ongoing problem, driver shortages. What about looking forward 2-3 years into the future? What does the industry need to be preparing for and be ready for?
Well, I think it's that increased use of technology in the system. I think we mentioned the changing consumer expectations around the marketplace and the ability to deliver that. I think there's elements around the changing sort of global supply chain and how that will operate, and how localization and when you start to think about the environmental and sustainability issues that are gaining momentum now, how does the supply chain adapt to manage that situation? And I think it's whilst it's on the agenda now, and I think it's there with people thinking about electric vehicles, etc. I think it will become higher on the agenda in terms of distance traveled for goods and products, and therefore it'll be more, there'll be a lot of focus around how we manage those global supply chains more efficiently and use as much localization as possible.
Right. Michel, coming back to your point about container capacity, just give us a bit of background on that, about why it's become an issue and where you think it's headed.
Well, I think it's a very good question. I had multiple conversations on this specific topic, and I sometimes wonder, where are these containers, right? Is it volume which has significantly grown, or is it like a kind of an artificial thing which has been created? But we see more and more companies who really have serious issues finding capacity. For example, they're trying to figure out, how do I transform my supply chain? Maybe I should move over to rail. So it is nowadays an actual problem in the market. Will that increase? Will that be resolved? For me, that's still very unclear, because I'm not fully clear on where does it come from. Is it really a capacity thing, or is it more that many companies are just not aware where capacity is located? Where are my containers, and how do I get those capacity containers at the right location to serve my clients?
Sure. What's your view on that, Gaurav?
I think just back to the point around CX and visibility through the supply chain, and consumers are looking at the ETA. When is my package going to arrive, right? We talk about the containers. So a lot of these journeys sometimes are multi-leg journeys. So you can these containers could be traversing the ocean leg, and there's a rail leg, a truck leg. You're dealing with challenges like truck driver shortages, like we talked about. So it's clearly not it's a very complex problem, right? What we've tended to see is some of the challenges are even those companies which are taking a stab at solving for these problems. They have there's a mindset issue, right? They have a traditional statistics approach to solving some of these problems, and I think that's where machine learning can offer some advantages. The ability to break up these journey legs into individual components and model for each component, and then you can start breaking down the problem into dwell time. So time of packages.
Give us. I was going to say, you've moved into it, so I'm sorry I've interrupted you, but let's move on to let's look at the new technologies that are now coming on stream and how they can make a difference, how they can improve logistics companies' management of their supply chains and of their operations. You talked about machine learning. Give us a bit of detail on that, how it works and what difference it will make for companies.
Yeah, I think machine learning, essentially, you're looking at historic data. All data is historic, but you're looking at data that a company collects in its IT systems, data about its transactions with its customers, its suppliers. It could be things like machines and vehicles. You're looking at this historic data, and then you're kind of going a bit deeper into preparing the data in a way that then facilitates decision making. So it's not as simple as, you get data. From the data you get knowledge, and then you build machine learning models and score future transactions or future cases, right? It's a bit more nuanced than that. And what you're doing with these machine learning models is you're learning from historic data, you're creating patterns, and then you're using those models you're applying those models to future transactions, to future data sets. And then you could give them a predictive score, right? It could be a predictive score in terms of the ETAs that we've been talking about. So at what point will...
So you could take, sorry to interrupt you, but you could take us historical data on arrival times and expected arrival times, almost similar to like how we look at weather patterns, and we predict weather patterns based on past models. Is that right? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely, absolutely. And break the problem down into individual or smaller components. And then you can run an overarching model to bring it all back together, right? So that's kind of the idea.
So in terms of ETAs is a clear area where you can improve that and provide better information. Any other areas where this might be valuable within logistics?
I think I touched upon preventive maintenance, right?
Yeah.
For instance, so that's another area. As we talk about, things like forklifts on construction sites, I think it's definitely got a applicability over there. Companies are looking at reducing downtime, always keeping these assets, sweating the kind of life of the asset and making sure they're generating revenue. So that's an area. Another area, interesting areas on the shipping side. So going further upstream, you look at large fleet of vessels. Look at somebody like any of the top 5 or top 10 carriers, right? They have an enormous fleet, and fuel consumption, if you can predict how much fuel they're going to consume through a journey, that's another area where you're seeing machine learning bring about significant savings in terms of, just think about the fuel as a raw material cost. It's very expensive, right? So even if you move the needle a percent, right, it could be, we're talking huge numbers when you consider the size of some of these fleets.
And what are the barriers to entry to a customer to embarking on using this technology?
My experience, it's predominantly the mindset, right? I think you need to get through those mindset, those cultural challenges. That's definitely a roadblock. And then you have the other ones, right? You're going to have customers saying, they don't have, the data, they're not collecting the right data, the data quality is not as good. I think, again, these are solved problems, right? My advice would be, get going on a proof of value, a proof of concept, prove out the concepts, add incremental value, get that quick win under the belt and go from there.
Yeah, because it's very much about, it's no good having data if it's not the right data, if it's not strong data, correct?
Correct. I mean, again, these are, you don't know what data you have till you actually go and you analyze the data and explore that data, right? So I think once you start the exercise, you might be, going after a particular use case, right? Sometimes customers have a good sense of where the gold is buried. So they say, okay, I want to solve for ETA, right? And you go and look at the data. And even if the data is not amenable for that particular use case, you'd be surprised. There could be other use cases which benefit, the top line or the bottom line coming out of these exploration exercises.
I think, sorry, Chip, yeah, I was just going to say, because just picking up on that, changing consumer expectations and as well in terms of that data element, and the more expectation for companies to be able to demonstrate the visibility of the supply chain, where the product's sourced from, what's the nature of the the source materials, how far it's traveled. And just coming back to that sort of environmental element, having that data to actually will start to make a difference with certain numbers of consumers, and the consumer is becoming more and more aware of it. So the importance of it, not only from a bottom line level, is actually sort of supporting the ultimate customer, the consumer at the end of the day, who's going to be buying that product.
Sure. Gaurav, is this still expensive technology to buy?
I wouldn't say it's expensive. You have a plethora of tools out there. So there's obviously the market is matured a lot in the last 5 to 6 years. For me, it's more an issue of skill sets, right? You need to have the right skill sets to uncover the problem space. You really want to explore the problem space. Think about, you can build it. You don't want to rush the modeling. You want to think about, how are you going to deploy this model, right? Who's going to benefit from this model? How am I going to embed the model into the business operation? So I think if you address those issues up front, rather than rush the modeling and then think about these elements as an afterthought, I think that's where many companies go wrong, right? They kind of rush the modeling and they don't give enough thought to how they're actually going to use these models to benefit and really embed it into the business. So
what they're going to use them for. You start from that position. What am I going to use it for? And then how do I go about doing it? Okay, thank you for that.
Maybe if I may, just two comments. So I heard you talking about data quality and being resolved. We do experience that fact still, because the logistics industry is quite conservative still, and I think the biggest bottleneck is how to capture high quality data. And I think players like P44, we are the experts in the industry to provide that high fidelity data, not only looking at the data, which is in most circumstances quite milestone driven versus real-time GPS data. We enrich that. So we utilize the data from the carriers, which is of less quality, milestone driven, but we enrich that by our own high quality real-time data by connecting to telematics, ELD, AIS for vessels, but also adding other data elements such as weather forecasting information, traffic information, road work. So everything you can think of to enrich the data, including our historical data, to ensure that these algorithms are being fed by huge amounts of quality data to make those algorithms shine and to be able to really predict accurate results, such as the ETA, right? So I think that's very relevant, to keep in mind.
I was going to ask you, Michel, about other technologies that Project 44 and others. What else can we expect? What else is available to customers to enable them to optimize their operations?
Yeah, so it's a good question. So I basically see two developments, and one is maybe already in place or is in place at our clients. So, besides just being able to see where is my truck or where's my vessel, that's not really interesting, right? It's all about, how can you utilize that data to drive your business managed by exception. So that's one thing. The other thing is, how can I utilize data to increase efficiency on a broader scope? So if I know, for example, exactly when my stock in transit will be arriving at its warehouse, can I use that data to reduce my safety stock levels and save on inventory costs? Can I use that data to better plan my staff in the warehouses, preventing that they are waiting for a truck to unload, which is actually late, but they haven't been informed? So, that is basically what you can do with data as we speak. But what you also see is that, many of our clients, they are going a step beyond. So why don't I use the platform, the visibility platform, to also allow other stakeholders within the chain to benefit from that? So we have this customer portal and a client, a supplier portal and a carrier portal, where they can access their own consolidated secured environment, and they can access what they should be allowed and see what they should be allowed to see, communicate via the platform, exchange transportation documents to also automate the documentation flow. Next step after that is that, for example, we partner with a lot of companies, and what we now see that more and more companies are seeing, like, we need to have this twin tower, this digital twin in place. But it all starts by having high quality data to feed those twins. And we partner with companies such as O9 Solutions, for example, where our visibility data is one of the fuel channels, as to say, of that control tower. So many companies are, they start by ensuring they have this reliable data in place, and then look into other technologies such as control towers to further optimize their processes.
Right. Okay. In terms of the these incredible abilities that you're giving customers, sometimes there are frictions that get in the way that nobody could really avoid, aren't there? You know, we see trade frictions creating problems at borders. We've seen it, you know, we all know about the ones in the UK at the moment. I mean, Jason, can I come to you? How much of a threat are these frictions to the logistics industry in the years ahead?
Yeah, but clearly they are a threat. I guess in a way, the other side of the coin is that the opportunity is for those businesses that can understand, you know, the requirements to manage those situations. There's an expertise, so you know, so there's an expertise in managing customs. So businesses that are managing the customs requirements, getting the right resource available to do that, automating the system processes. Making those efficiency gains, if you like, through process, are then finding an opportunity in that. So, you know, in the adversity of the restrictions that come, there comes an opportunity. But you've got to have the expertise and the access to the skill sets to support that. Clearly, as political dynamics change, then that might change, you know, that may change the dynamics of how we trade with certain areas of the world, etc. And that is something that is very, you know, that's something that's much more difficult to manage.
Yeah, I mean, Michel, tell us about some of the solutions that are available that Jason's alluded to there to help companies through these processes.
Yeah, I think there are so many. You know, it depends on which area you are focusing on, but you know, in general, I think it's important that if you go for a solution to, you know, cover these pains, it should be a solution depending on the company which has a global scale and is able to, you know, provide that value on all these different end-to-end multimodal capabilities. So both for road, ocean, air, and rail. It needs to be end-to-end. So, you know, there's no company who's looking into, or most of them at least, who's looking into, okay, we need to have something for ocean, we need to have something for road, and maybe within road, we need to have a solution for LTL, parcel, full truckload. I think the biggest message here is that, you know, there are players who can provide that end-to-end visibility piece on a global scale across all transport modes in real time. And you know, and that allows you again to have this access to high fidelity data, and then you can take it to the next step. So do I need, for example, to optimize my yard management processes or my slot booking processes? Again, you know, that will be, well, there's a need to have a fuel channel going to the slot booking tool to tell you exactly when is the truck arriving at the gate, you know, for example, at the yard. Again, to make these other add-ons or other applications create more value for your organization.
Sure. I think you're saying that there's always a software solution to all these headaches that we're going to be presented with, aren't you? Yeah. What about that big area? I mean, I'm asking all the panels about this. Sustainability, net zero, it's something that's important on a societal level, and we've got governments enshrining it in regulation now across the world. How is it going to impact on logistics, and how can your products help companies get to net zero, however we're defining that? I mean, Gaurav, let's start with you on that one.
I think that's definitely an interesting one, and a lot of eyeballs on the sustainability area in the industry. And when I think about it, I think the last mile, right? So you'll have, electric vehicles, you talk about drone delivery. So I think that's not as problematic as we look into the future. In my view, it's the kind of global shipping industry which is going to face predominant challenge when it comes to sustainability, right? Because you have
sorry, Gaurav, are you referring to shipping as in marine or shipping?
Marine.
Yeah, okay, so sorry, carry on. Yeah,
marine, ocean shipping, transporting containers
sure.
across.
Yeah, carry on.
And so you look at the bunker fuel. I think shipping or bunker fuels constitute about 2.5% of global CO2 emissions, right? And you think about it's a very fragmented industry. It's cross-border. The ships are traveling in international waters for a long time, and so it's difficult to regulate at a national or a regional basis, right? And bunker fuel again is very expensive. Alternatives to that are expensive. You think about the the average life of a vessel, a shipping ship, it's 20 to 30 years, right? So you're already going into, you need to order those vessels today if you have to be kind of net zero, which most countries or many countries are committing to by 2050, right? So I think that's the challenge. But I think look at the bright side. You have some of the leaders like Maersk. I think they've all already ordered their a set of 8 kind of green methanol powered ships. So I think there's some change coming. I think it's going to be about the cost, right? So there's going to be an increase in the cost of transportation when you look at these different alternatives to bunker fuel. Who's going to bear that cost? Is the retailers, the CPG company? Are they going to be, climate conscious consumers who are going to take up that cost, right? Or is the solution going to be, come from the shipping industry itself, right? Is there going to be some kind of a levy within the, per kind of ton of CO2 emission, right? So I think that's, in my mind, when you think of sustainability, global shipping is one of the problem areas.
Those are great questions you've raised there. I mean, what's your view about this very important area, Michel?
Yeah, I'm very passionate about this particular topic. How can we utilize data automation to contribute to creating this cleaner environment? I think there are many initiatives going on, as you just mentioned. Maersk is a good example, but also software vendors like P44. We have this CO2 calculator. We are running various projects as we speak with some major clients of ours to see how can we better measure fuel consumption. How can we utilize the data even better to increase collaboration and, for example, reduce the empty miles? It's still a big issue that capacity is not fully optimized. So how can we utilize our platform, for example, to collaborate, to have carriers collaborate so they can share capacity, but also, empty miles, empty containers just being used. I think it's massive. So the opportunity from a data point of view and automation point of view to reduce the empty miles, to optimize trade lanes, and thereby reduce fuel consumption is massive. And we're heavily investing in that particular topic now, because I think sustainability is important, and will even become way more important in the next coming years. So it has our full focus as we speak. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Jason, are you finding that at the M&A level and with new investments that the investors ask about sustainability as a key factor, basically because they have to, or what?
Yeah, I think it comes into the point of what is the end consumer behavior that is being driven by this. They're interested ultimately in how that is changing the revenue model of a business, and how the disruptors are changing that revenue model, because ultimately they want to be in businesses that are going to grow and do the right things in the market. While sustainability I think is on the list of things for discussion, I don't think it's yet as high up the agenda. Yeah. In terms of the ultimate investment decision making process. But what you are seeing is a lot of interest in areas such as, sort of electrification, automation of delivery methods, last mile delivery. Gaurav mentioned where there's lots of automation type product, drone products, electric door delivery product. There's lots of venture capital interest starting to be shown in those sorts of areas where they can see a hugely scalable opportunity for the people who get it right. I think, ultimately there's lots of ideas being generated. There'll be some consolidation. There needs to be some consolidation of that technology into a few key areas, I suspect.
Give me, all of you, if I could ask you, give me one area or one thing that will be different about logistics in 10 years' time to how it is now. Starting with Gaurav. Make you be first.
I alluded to this a bit before. So we're helping, companies predict ETA of their shipments, right? So
but that's coming quite soon, isn't it? That's not far away. That's sort of here, or sort of nearly here, isn't it?
Yeah. What I'm trying to say is take that same logic of ETA for the last mile. Let's take in the context of we're working one of the major global automobile companies, right? Automotive.
Yeah.
We're predicting the ETA from the time the vehicle is QA checked at the plant, right, till the time it reaches the dealership, right? And then you have these multi-leg
Oh,
journeys
okay.
I talked about. Now take that same logic, but go further backstream in the supply chain. So you want to have the ETA of, of the parts at the manufacturing plant, and then you go either further back, you want to, either the ETA of the raw materials coming in from the source point of source, right? So, and that's when you can think about an integrated supply chain. I think the big difference also is, the level of automation. I would expect in the next, 7 to 10 years that there would be some companies which are doing the entire end-to-end in a fully automated way, right? I think that's where it's going there. I think that's the direction we're headed in.
Yeah, thanks for that, Gaurav. And Michel?
Yeah, I think, just from a more generic point of view, I think automation, it's still maybe early phase. For us, maybe it feels like it's very advanced, and luckily it is, but, we are at a starting phase. So I think if you would look 10 years ahead of us, how far will the adoption of automation reach? I think we are just at the starting point. When I look at areas such as LATAM, APAC, for example, there's a lot of work to do there. We also, as a company, are heavily investing in these regions because, for us here in Europe, for example, in North America, it's, quite standard that, every truck is able to provide GPS data and every vessel, and, but in some areas in the world, this is not just a standard approach. And so I think from a generic point of view, the adoption and the usage of automation will only increase, not only in, within our region, but also in other regions. But it will also start creating more advanced capabilities to provide a, let's say, platform to increase collaboration. Again, coming back to, reduce the amount of empty miles and further take that to the next level, basically, because, we are still in quite a silo-driven environment, I would say. And years ago, everyone was talking about, let's start collaborating, let's start sharing data. But if you would ask them, okay, let's start a project at these times, they were like focused on risks versus what is the actual value here. And now we are at a point, we are in an IoT-driven environment that people really realize there's so much value to gain. But I think also from a supply chain visibility point of view, we just get started, and got started. And I think in the next coming 10 years, it will, we will be taken to the next gen, and more companies will adopt that, and it will create huge amounts of opportunities for companies to become way more efficient, contribute to, reducing carbon footprint, and to even take collaboration also among carriers, competitors, suppliers in similar industry to the next level.
Thank you, Michel. And Jason, what's your view? Give us an area where life will be different.
Yeah, it's just at risk of being a bit repetitive, really, in this, and just emphasising the points that were already made. I think it is in that advancement around automation. Right. I think that will, sort of, as you say, we're at the early stages. I think that will accelerate. I think there will be lots more consolidation of technology platforms, which will allow those elements of collaboration and sharing and better usage of capacity and space in the supply chain. Which are all things that sort of Michel has sort of picked up on, really, in terms of that, and I think that's where we'll see the acceleration, really, and change.
Well, thank you. And now let's give you all a chance before we're sort of almost out of time, but let's give you all a chance to talk about your products a bit. Maybe give us a use case or a success story with a customer, or however you choose, but tell us a bit about what you do and why it works and why it's successful. So let's start with you, Michel.
Sure. Thanks for that. So I already mentioned my role, right, at P44, one of the global leaders in the end-to-end supply chain visibility in real time and across all transport modes. What I mentioned earlier, I'm so passionate about what we are doing, because for me, one thing really stands out, and it is the amount of value we can offer to our clients and to the industry. And when I look at some use cases, we are working with major companies. I already mentioned a couple of them, like Amazon, but also companies like IKEA, Unilever, huge enterprise organizations, high complexity. And if I just look at the amount of savings we are able to provide to them just by automation, typically our clients, for example, they reduce their manual effort to get insights on the shipment statuses by just 30%. They can reduce safety stock levels by 5%. They can increase efficiency in the warehouses by 30%. And I'm just saying on the low side. So, on the safe side, I would say these are benchmark numbers. But again, if I look at the biggest scale, most of our clients, just within 1 year, they are able to reduce their overall global transportation cost by 1%. And when I name those companies like these Amazons, the IKEAs, you can imagine how huge those costs are. And if you just take off 1%, it is massive. And that's just, and that's just from a cost, or let's say cost saving perspective. But if you also look at the other side of the business, that how massively we are able to support them in increasing the customer experience. How crazy is it that people are getting data from all those different channels? They are consolidating that in an Excel template. They are sending emails and having calls with the LSPs. We automate that whole process. So you see also that, it boosts efficiency, it boosts customer experience, and it's really massive. It's all about, the value we offer, the tools to better collaborate, to increase customer experience. It really gets me excited. It really gets me excited. Yeah.
There's some great figures you quoted there, Michel. Thank you for that. Gaurav, tell us about Inner Wisdom.
Yeah, I tend to agree with Michel a bit, right? Because we come across, use cases, like I said, both on the top line as well as the bottom line. So we can help a company, generate more revenue through machine learning. At the same time, we can help them, reduce cost, right? And sometimes you have a combination of both, and those use cases are particularly compelling. So there are quite a few in the logistics industry, quite a few machine learning applications, for example, predicting transit time. We do that for Aramex, right? So we've helped them kind of pivot from a traditional B2B freight forwarding company to a, more B2C fulfillment company, able to predict the ETA of shipments, right? And help improve the customer experience, reduce the volume of calls coming into the contact center. The one I'd like to talk about is, one in the shipping world. So we've helped one of the larger shipping carriers optimize their fuel consumption. So by modeling or looking at their historic data about, the vessels at sea. So again, in this case, you need instrumentation data. So you need the ships to be instrumented. So you can collect data about the engine, the shaft power, the aft, how deep in the water the ship is. Obviously so you're trying to predict, fuel consumed per nautical mile. And then if you save even a percentage of that, that fuel consumption, you're talking, $250,000 for a journey of, let's say, 10, 15 days. So it's very significant, the savings, when you extrapolate that at a fleet level.
Absolutely. Compelling case. Thank you for that, Gaurav. And Jason.
Yeah, I guess I'm in a slightly different space in the market, in sort of outside the operational side.
You're not selling a product as such. But,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, but I guess my passion is working with the shareholders of a business to understand what those key objectives are in terms of the future growth, and supporting them in raising the finance and and realizing value for those shareholders as part of that process, really. And quite often that is unlocking the growth potential of the business by bringing in a next level investor into that business and operation. And I guess, the recent sale of Signia to Wincanton is a good example of that. A business that had grown to a scale, but had limitations on its funding capacity going forward. What Wincanton gives is the opportunity to take that business forward, with the scale and infrastructure that they have to bring in the skill sets that they have, but also to sort of work across their customer base to give it more investment and more growth opportunity. And it unlocks investment in areas like automation, which, as a private owner, under the previous ownership, we're always under a sort of a little bit more of a limitation, and a restrictions of the capital that they had to hand.
It's a model example of that cross-pollination you were talking about, that crossing across sectors to get greater capacity, etc.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you for that, Jason. And thanks to all the panel. We've run out of time. I've certainly found it fascinating. I hope our audience have. Please do send your questions, as I say, on the live text. But meanwhile, until next time, thank you to Gaurav Bhagi from Inner Wisdom, to Michel Stakelenberg from Project 44, and to Jason Whitworth from BDO. Thanks to all of you, and see you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks.